tonight, so it probably looks really like.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm going to call the board meeting back to order for January 10th, 2021. We started tonight's board meeting in executive session where we voted executive session minutes. We did not vote to release the minutes, and we did not vote to approve the May 3rd minutes. Everything else was approved, but we have not voted to release them yet. With that, would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to start tonight's meeting with the board having the honor of presenting Josh Ford, firefighter, paramedic Josh Ford, with a proclamation, and Larry Ballantyne will read that.
Thank you, Michael. It's my privilege to read the proclamation. It states, whereas on November 20th, 2020, there was a serious car accident on Route 6 with a person trapped in a car on fire. And whereas firefighter Josh Ford was off duty on Route 6 with his family and came upon the accident. And whereas firefighter Ford and an unidentified bystander without any protective equipment or tools were able to gain access to the car and remove the occupant. Now, therefore, we do thereby urge all the residents of our community to join with us in proclaiming our appreciation of firefighter Josh Ford for his quick, decisive, and courageous actions. Overcoming numerous challenges, he relied on his training and knowledge to complete the rescue under extreme conditions. In doing so, firefighter Ford upheld the very finest tradition of our fire department. Given on this day, January 10th, 2020, by the Harwich Board of Selectmen. Congratulations, Josh.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention, Joe Powers, Town Administrator, is on the big screen tonight, along with Selectman Mary Anderson. Joe, would you like to make any comments? Can he hear us?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Members, hopefully you can hear me. Is it working? Great. Sorry I can't be there in person, adhering to the protocols, but to firefighter Ford, just thank you for your actions, which reflect so well on the town, and just speak to your character and ability, not only as a firefighter, but as someone the town is very proud of. Again, wish I could be there in person, but a wonderful and well-earned proclamation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mary? You're muted.
I'm in awe of what you did. That's just unbelievable. I know you trained for that, but still to be out there with your family, see a vehicle on fire and jump in, I don't have words. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Larry?
I think the proclamation says most of it, but incredible. I agree with Mary to jump out and not only do that, but be careful your family's protected at the same time. It's incredible. Nice job.
Very good. Thank you.
Julie?
I don't have any words any better than the proclamation to describe how grateful we are to have you in town serving, and just really incredibly grateful for your bravery, and thank you very much.
I echo my colleagues' comments and just say the world needs more people like yourself. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Go back to work, Josh.
We go to public comment announcement. Mark, you were up.
Mark Kelleher, West Harwich. Happy New Year. Just two things on communication I'd like the board and the benefit of the public to try and work at. I've had several cases, and it's more the exception than the rule, that I will send emails and they won't be acknowledged. And I know I'm not speaking specifically to this time because I know we have COVID and people are very busy. But I'd like the board to please consider kind of making it I don't want to make it a rule, but encouraging staff to at least acknowledge an email within a couple of days. Don't have to answer. For example, today I sent an email out to a staff member, and that staff member was kind enough to respond to me and said, I'll get you your answer in a few days. So just that type of communication, there's nothing worse than to send an email and not get at least an acknowledgement. And I'd also say for the selectmen as well, for me and maybe many other people, I don't know the procedures for the selectmen. I just found out from Mike that when you send a letter to the board, Mike answers and not the rest of the board. But I think it'd be very helpful if you at least acknowledged receipt of the email. Then people know that at least you saw it. The second thing is you have a communications part on the selectmen's packet. Things of general interest, I would recommend that when they come in, if at all possible, and this is a please, that you publish that. Give you an example. I sent a letter to the selectmen on short-term rentals. I don't know when that will be published, but I think it would be advantageous to the whole town if that letter was published, because you may find you may get more input from other people and make better decisions when you come to make perhaps some decisions in short-term rentals. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else for public comment announcement? Katie? Dr. O'Neill?
Good evening, Dr. Katie O'Neill, Health Director. Just want to make sure everyone's aware that we are currently in a COVID surge right now. Over the past 10 days, we've seen more than 150 cases reported in Harwich alone. So just a reminder to everyone, we still need to protect our most vulnerable. Good hand hygiene, masks when you're indoors, stay home if you're sick. The state has opened a Stop the Spread site at the Melody Tent in Hyannis, so get tested if you show any symptoms. And we want to be considerate of our businesses as well. There's staffing issues as it is without COVID, so we want to keep everyone running, no disruption of services. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Sure, Carol Marie Anderson, permanent resident of Harwich.
Okay, if this is about what you stood before us with last year, I will not hear it tonight.
Well, actually, it was 3 years ago, but I wasn't going to do that. I'm here in a spirit of reconciliation in the new year.
And what's this in regards to?
Well, I wanted to wish you all a happy new year, number one.
Thank you.
And we just finished Advent, for those of you who do participate in the Christian faith. It's been a tough time, a tough road with COVID, and I just wanted to wish you strong graces from Jesus Christ. We're in a period of intense training, obviously.
I'm going to get to the point. We're not doing any spiritual stuff tonight. If you want to.
Well, it's my First Amendment right, and I just wanted to say I'm here in a
spirit of. It's not your First Amendment right to sit in this meeting and talk about things that we're not going to allow you to talk about. So.
Well, it's my religious right.
What is it about? This is public comment and announcement.
Thank you.
And it is a selectmen's meeting. It is our meeting. We decide who speaks.
So I'm looking to reconciliate and do it outside of court. So I'm in a different vein than I was a couple of years ago.
Do me a favor.
Sure.
Come to the office tomorrow, make an appointment with me, and we'll set up an agenda item if it's appropriate. But we're not going to do this tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I just wanted
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment announcement?
I think I have a couple of minutes. I wanted to talk about the bacterial level in some of the
No.
Nickerson State Park.
No. That's Brewster. Please
Well,
please
actually,
get off the microphone. Please.
Actually, it was in your letter for, I believe,
I'm going to have you removed if you do not get away from the microphone. Make an agenda item tomorrow, and we will agenda it if it's appropriate. We're not doing this again this year. Sorry. Anyone else for public comment announcement? All set? Consent agenda, Julie?
Consent agenda. A, vote to approve request, oh, sorry, I'm not talking loud enough with my mask. Vote to approve request to close from February 1st to 2022 to February 28th, 2022 for Cape Sea Grill, 31 C Street. B, vote to approve a Caleb Chase request in the amount of $1,000. C, vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes for July 26, 2021. D, vote to approve the resignation of Patrol Officer Ryan Fazzino, effective December 31st, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mary?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, new business, discussion and possible vote on the board's priorities of the use of the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds. Good evening.
Good evening. Carol Capola, Finance Director. The Health Director also included a memo in your packet for your review. And certainly, hopefully after I am finished, if you have any questions for her, she would be more than happy to answer them.
Okay.
So the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which we fondly call ARPA, was awarded to the town of Harwich. Funding was awarded to the town of Harwich in the amount just under $1.3 million. There are specific categories that those funds can be used to expend on general government services and so forth, and I will get into that a little further. The town received 50% of that funding back in June of 2021, and will receive the other 50% in June of 2022. In addition to that, Barnstable County was awarded just over $41 million, and those funds will be distributed in a manner that I don't believe that we are quite certain yet. Originally, we thought that they were going to be distributed based on population, but I don't think that that is the case. I know that Barnstable County is currently surveying residents and has reached out to municipalities for various meetings to discuss the options of what can be used, what those funds can be used for. If they were based on population, the town of Harwich would be receiving just a little over $2.3 million. But that is not anywhere certain. It could be an application basis that goes into the county, and the county and other folks decide how they're going to allow those funds to be distributed and expended. So we were working with, in June when I came before you to talk about federal funding, we were working on what we called an interim final rule from the federal government regarding these ARPA funds. The final rule came out last Thursday. So the final rule gave much more flexibility to communities, which is great. And it simplified the approach. It simplified the reporting. So there's certain categories that these funds can be used. The town of Harwich is a small community. We're considered a non-entitlement unit. We have a population of under 50,000 people. So our money flows through the state with regard to the just under $1.3 million. This is the $41 million is going to flow through the county. The county should have received at least half of that by now. You can replace revenue. For smaller communities, you can replace up to $10 million in revenue. So you just have to report that to the federal government and say, we're going to replace revenue that we lost in FY20 or FY21. And there's no calculation that has to be done at all. We're just going to report it that way. But we also have to use those funds on general government services. So what does that mean? Well, it could mean anything from public health to public safety to investment in infrastructure, technology, things of that nature. The second category is the support of public health and economic responses to the pandemic. So public health, of course, you would think that it would be testing sites, and it is, and vaccinations, and the cost to deliver those vaccinations, and other areas such as, for Harwich, one of them is COVID surveillance. The VNA currently does all the COVID surveillance, and there was a period in time, there was no funding for it. So when you're receiving invoices on a monthly basis that are $10,000 to $15,000 a month, that's significant. And the town of Harwich doesn't have those kind of funds to support that. So we could use this money to support that. You can assist households and small businesses. You can assist nonprofits. You may be able to assist some of your impacted industries, such as your restaurants. And in addition to that, there's been funds put aside for healthcare as well. Because the pandemic has caused quite a bit of mental health and substance concerns, challenges. You could provide premium pay to eligible workers. There's very significant and stringent requirements with regard to this. There's not a lot of flexibility in this category. They have to be non-exempt workers. So they have to be your workers that are low-wage workers, so I guess I can explain it. They're typically hourly workers that earn overtime. You can provide up to $13 an hour to them, to a maximum of $25,000 apiece. But you have to, there's a few hoops you're going to have to jump through in order to be able to do that. You can invest in water, you can invest in sewer, and infrastructure for broadband, and those categories are quite broad. So the town of Harwich certainly has considerable sewer expenditures upcoming, and so this could be used to support that endeavor as well. The funds have to be committed by December 31st of 2024, and they have to be fully expended by December 31st of 2026. And there's some categories that you absolutely cannot use this funding for. You can't use it to support debt service, can't fund your pensions. So if you have unfunded liabilities, it's not allowed to be used for that category. You can't put it away in a rainy day fund. And you can't offset any tax revenue reductions. We have some categories that I've reached out to legal counsel just to be sure that would be appropriate and adequate to use these funds. To support the installation and purchase and training for Office 365, and that would be enterprise-wide, meaning for the entire town. To purchase at-home COVID test kits, which are not funded from any other source. As I mentioned before, the COVID surveillance that we've experienced, those expenses, and then wastewater construction. But certainly it is up to the purview of the board of how you would like to expend those funds. We have reporting that we are required to complete on a quarterly basis with the federal government, and we're all set to do that. That's all in place. That begins for the town of Harwich at the end of April. I would be happy to have further discussions with you. I know that the discussions about the county funds is probably, is a much larger conversation that you may want to have this evening or another time.
Thank you, Carol. What is the total amount that we've received so far that we're going to have another 50%? What's the
$635,443.
times two?
Yes, so that's half. That's 50%.
Thank you. And then, Carol, how much planning, other than Office 365 and the few things that you mentioned, I guess before I ask that, we did put in for some reimbursement on ARPA with ARPA funds already that we were denied, correct?
We have not spent any of the money.
Okay. What was the fund that we had that they denied some of the requests?
Yeah, so we had two other federal funding sources. One is FEMA, and the other is the CARES Act funds.
Okay, and the CARES Act is the one that they so some of this money could probably go to pay that.
Some of this could pay.
To pay what was denied.
Well, I fought tooth and nail, and I have everything covered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, Carol, have you met with the town administrator, and how much planning has been done And I would assume that there's gonna be recommendations with dollar amounts made to the board at some point with what you've already come up with, correct?
Correct. I have met with the town administrator. We have discussed the ARPA funds. We've discussed the use of them. We were, you know, the final rule came out last Thursday, so Friday we had a long discussion with regard to the use of those funds, whether they are considered grant funds, which they are. I did receive an opinion with regard to that, so there's no appropriation needed from the from the town of Harwich to expend those funds. That's important to me. So we did have a long conversation about that. We do have, you know, we've had some planning, but I think we're all waiting to finalize that capital plan too, because that's an important piece and aspect of this. But to date, we have not committed nor expended any of these funds without your approval.
I'm gonna have the board ask you whatever questions they have, and then maybe we'll call on our county delegate, and then I'm gonna ask Joe Powers to speak after the board's done with questions to you. But I would just comment on the memo that was in our packet tonight from our health director, Dr. O'Neill. And certainly I think there's many departments in this town that have, to the public speaker earlier, Mark Kelleher, about people returning emails and phone calls. If anyone took the time to read Dr. O'Neill's memo today, they might understand why in some cases people aren't getting back to people. The overwhelming rudeness of people that are contacting the health department. Dr. O'Neill sent me some emails that she received over the weekend that were a personal attack on her for a few people that litter and throw their masks on the ground. It's really overwhelming, and I do believe that Dr. O'Neill and the health department could probably use some immediate funds, but we'll have that conversation with the town administrator. But certainly with people not being able to get at-home test kits at the pharmacy, and again, the amount of phone calls and emails that the health department's getting, I think that memo speaks for itself, and we need to act on that sooner rather than later. But I would urge the public, when you call these departments, to understand what they're up against. And in lots of departments, and I imagine as in the schools here tonight, or several members of the school are here tonight, they're probably lacking staff as well. People need to be patient and breathe a little bit before they call the health department or any department in this town and bark at them. They're doing the best job they can with the resources that they have, and we really need to all take a breath and realize that these people are working under circumstances that they've never worked under before. With that, I will turn it over to Mary first.
My first question is related to what Michael just talked about. The letter that Katie O'Neill sent us was just eye-opening. And all I could think of was the conversation we had about the people at Saquatucket that wouldn't listen to the harbor master. I don't know what is wrong with people that they feel they are so entitled that they just don't have to follow normal social niceties. But anyways, my question, Carol, is could we use some of that money to hire staff? I have no doubt that this is not our last go-around with a pandemic or some other type of situation that's going to tax our health department. And it sounds like Katie desperately needs additional staff.
So to support the pandemic, you can hire personnel, and it doesn't have to be just like a rehire for communities that had to lay off personnel. It could be a new hire to support the endeavors of the department. It depends on the department, honestly. I don't think that it would be supported in such as, let's say, an engineering department to hire an additional engineer, unless, of course, you could support that with, you know, a necessary category that would encompass those expenses. But yes.
Okay. My other question was in that 30, 40-page document that came through today. On page 20, it talked about improvements to vacant and abandoned properties, including rehab, maintenance, renovation, remediation. for conversion to affordable housing. Have you looked into that at all? I couldn't help but wonder if some of the properties that we own that we've talked about, we could use some ARPA money and maybe get some housing quickly.
You can use ARPA money for renovation or the construction for affordable housing. That is one of the categories that can be used.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Larry?
Thank you, Carol. I think we have time to, for you and Joe and others to come back with some recommendations. I put me on the side, though, that I would like to see a way to move forward with helping our health department as soon as we possibly can. As you recall, they actually came to us, I think, about a year and a half ago, asking for additional help because we were in the, at that point, the beginning, we hoped wouldn't be long-lasting COVID, and it was causing stress. And based on the letter and everything else, and just so we know, we need help there. We need it very quickly. So I'd like to see that move ahead, and then wait for you to come back with recommendations on the rest of the possible expenditures.
Julie?
Yeah, I would reiterate the importance to help the health department. I think that not only to the points that the chair has made about the terrible treatment, and to your point as well about how much work they've done through this pandemic, but I think that the general public, who does seem to be entitled in terms of indicating they should be also picking up masks a priority, is a real problem. You know, the health department has a lot of functions that people don't think about, and the pressure that's on them during this pandemic is bad enough, but they also, you know, are involved in the building review process, and I can't even imagine the heat they're feeling there in terms of, you know, being delayed while they're trying to do the real work to protect the citizens of Harwich. So I think whatever we can do initially, it should be aimed at helping the health department. And that would include if they needed more staff for whatever reasons. I do agree with Larry. I'd like to get some more ideas of exactly where we could target the money, and get your feedback and the town administrator's feedback. I certainly think that we should probably look at these monies, though, as best we can to target the areas that we've already spent, as you indicated, Carol, you know, testing and things like that, that we can recoup monies. Seeing that we got these monies because of that, it'd be nice to aim it at that and clean those bills up where we can and help the health department where we can, and then focus from there.
Joe Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank our finance director for getting the discussion to the board this quickly this evening. As Carol mentioned in her presentation, as you can read in her letter, the final rule was rolled out sometime Thursday afternoon from the federal government. And Carol may be the only person in probably a 15-mile radius that has probably read the entire 400-plus page original document, but was also good enough to provide us with the executive summary. And you know it's a large document when the executive summary runs 45 pages. But Carol has been on top of this from the earliest mention of these funds being available. Carol and I did have a very impactful conversation on Friday. That was one of the upsides, if you will, of the snowstorm, is that we had the bandwidth to have those conversations. And beyond what Carol has mentioned this evening, and certainly Dr. O'Neill's well-crafted letter, that anyone that reads it understands what they're up against, and that doesn't even factor in the belligerence of what I would call ignorant behavior in the community. They really are in a difficult spot. But as Carol and I have discussed, I've used the framework that I want to be mindful of where the money came from, meaning this is all a result of the global pandemic that quite obviously on January 10th, 2022 is still wreaking havoc because you have two key participants having to work remotely. And today, a survey of staff, we have about 18% of our workforce unable to be in person not just because of COVID, but COVID-related cases and just cold and flu. So the money came with a purpose and the money came with a cost, and that's the pandemic we're dealing with. And the mindset that I've been applying is to try and look at uses that would not otherwise be available. And so certainly as we talk about public health and supporting that, that's an appropriate use because we are still in the midst of a public health crisis. Whether this is considered an emergency, state of emergency or not, that's the reality. Carol also mentioned technology. That's a theme you're going to hear quite often from Carol and from me over the coming weeks, not only for this process, but for the budget, because we need to be able to be a more nimble operation in the 21st century, and the way we get there is to leverage technology, and something as simple as implementing Office 365. That's something where, you know, someone in the audience may know that and may realize that their company or their group has used that for years, and we're lagging in getting that on board. But the other key piece that I heard from Carol on a Friday that I want to emphasize today is in the final rule, it does not require that appropriation from town meeting. That's a game changer. That means as soon as we can prioritize and identify where we need to spend the money, we can do so expeditiously. So first to Carol, thank you for the work that you've done to get us to this conversation today. And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add on to thank Dr. O'Neill and everybody on her team. I know somewhat of what they're going through, and I would just hope that they can keep the faith and know that we support and appreciate their endeavors. And whenever we can put that in a more perfect form for them, we certainly will. But those are my thoughts this evening.
Joe, I'd also like you to take a look at the Council on Aging. And I don't know if they have put in any requests, but I have to admit I would have to think that this is making quite an impact on the Council on Aging as well. So if we could reach out at least to that department head and see what her immediate needs are, if there are any, I certainly would appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you. And then coming soon to a theater near us, you're going to come in with some ideas and suggestions.
If that was addressed to me, Mr. Chairman, I'll start and say, certainly, we know we've gotten great detail from the final rule, and so we know what we're dealing with. We have a department head meeting tomorrow where we can do a little bit of a deeper dive with the department heads. And I also hope we can take an opportunity this evening to also dive into the, I'll call it a situation that's occurring at the county level amongst county leadership and for the board and staff to weigh in on that issue as well, because there's a need for the money that's available for certain.
Thank you, Joe. With that, I would like to call Elizabeth Harder up, our delegate and representative to the Barnstable County delegates.
You're so much taller than I am. Hello, Elizabeth Harder, Harwich delegate, Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. Regarding the situation at the county level, it has been resolved. There was a debate over who got to have the final say over how the $40 million was going to be spent. And as the county works through the ordinance process, we passed an ordinance, overrode the commissioner's veto, and the Assembly of Delegates will have a say in where the $40 million go, which we felt was very important because we felt like the towns should have their representative there fighting to make sure that the largest towns didn't get all the money or something like that. We also felt like it was important to have a debate about why the county got money instead of each town just getting their own more money. And the reason is because we're one of the few places that has county government in Massachusetts, and that's because we are unique. We may be different towns, but we all share the same water. We all share the same coastlines. We all share the same infrastructure with bridges and roads and things. And sometimes We have more money than Truro, Barnstable has more money than us. So there was a thinking that that's why the county would get money rather than just give all the money to individual towns. That's going to be debated. That has not been decided one way or the other. What is happening right now is the county has set up, they are conducting a survey, and they want to hear from everybody. All of you watching at home, they want to hear from you. Go to www.barnstablecounty.org. That is the website, and you will see /ARPA, A-R-P-A. And that is where, if you go to the county website, you will see the survey, and you can fill it out and let the county know what you think the priorities are, and how what you think should happen. Because it is very important to take the citizens' input on this. The other thing to remember is, and I'm very glad Joe said this first, it is for COVID relief. That is primarily the reason we have this money. So I just would like people to keep that in mind. Every town has a wish list of, I mean, you know me, I run around every day screaming housing, 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 housing. But we're entering into year 3 of people suffering from this pandemic. So let me just make sure I covered all my notes, but I think that's it. The survey, nothing's been decided yet. And as Carol pointed out, yes, I agree, like the health departments have a major sense of urgency. Spending all this money does not have an impending sense of urgency. We do have until the end of 24 to decide where the money goes. And we have till the end of 2026 to spend the money. And so I just want to let people know that there's no need to panic, no need to say, we got to get this money now. And I think there's time for everyone to be clear-headed and take a deep breath and really try to make the best decisions. Having said that, I take your questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Larry?
No questions. I think it's well explained. I guess my concern is that sometimes, not to be too much of a local person, but sometimes when we get out of our realm into county and state, for instance, discussions can become more political than directly affecting what our concern is, which is COVID relief. And I would hope that you and others would look at this and be sure we aren't pushed into political discussion on regionalization or the military base or something of that sort. That is fun to talk about, but may not necessarily help our immediate and longer term needs.
Yeah, that has nothing to do. That's why I focused on this is for COVID relief. This is called the rescue plan, because we need to be rescued from 2.5 years of hell. So it's not about fighting for or against the gun range or anything like that. It is for COVID relief.
Thank you.
Julie?
No, I do think you did a great job in explaining it, and I agree. I think we should be focusing on the COVID-related issues and costs in front of us. And you're right, we have time to really assess those, and let's spend it smartly. But I would, again, reiterate my support for helping health out.
Mary?
I agree with Julie. Let's take care of the health department. And then I'd like to see what Joe and his team comes up with for the best way to spend this money.
Thank you.
And I appreciate Elizabeth pointing out we don't have to decide for another couple of years and then a couple more years to spend. So it really can be very well thought out.
Joe, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder that what we heard this evening, it's going to be an inelegant phrase, and I apologize in advance to Carol. But there are two buckets, if you will. There is the 1.27 that the town of Harwich received directly through the state. 50% is already on hand, and that's what we're focused on right now. And that's where we can make an immediate hit on some things that are pressing, both technologically and for the health department. And then separate from that is what Elizabeth just talked about with money coming from the county. They're both under the same rule. However, the money that we've had on hand since June is something that we'd be looking to expend sooner rather than later, because we do have immediate use for that, and that'll come back to the boards sooner rather than later. So just a reminder that there's two buckets of money that's out there. The first bucket, the first of two tranches, has been delivered, with the second one coming up in a matter of months.
Thank you, Joe. Carol, anything to add or ask? Great. Elizabeth, the only question I have is, how is the 41 million calculated when they gave it to the Cape?
It was done by the population of the Cape. And they did, and I think this is where people got confused, in that they said, you know, if we didn't have a county government, then Harwich would get X amount of money, and Barnstable would get this amount of money. And so needless to say, the bigger towns are like, yes, let's do it that way. And the smaller towns are not supporting that. And as I said, there's a reason we have county government, because the things that every town wants to do, if every town tried to do it on their own, it's almost impossible. And there are things that we can do at a county level that will help everyone. That may not be where we use this money. We may decide just give the towns a certain amount, and we may decide to do it by population. We may decide to do a different formula, because P-Town and Truro will end up maybe having enough money to buy all the town staff a donut. You know what I mean? So there's so much to be discussed. And so I just want you to know that nothing, contrary to rumors that have been floating around that I'm getting phone calls about, nothing has been decided. No money has been spent. Nothing to fear right now, okay?
The takeaway, really, that survey is important to the people in the town of Harwich. If we get towns that are more active on the survey, they're probably going to get more attention. So as much as surveys are surveys, I think it's important that you go on the county website and say what you think is right for the town of Harwich.
Please, the more I have your input, the more backup I have to fight for Harwich.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we would be more than happy to put a link on the website, and the town's website, to Barnstable County to assist in that endeavor. But I just don't want I don't want to see the town of Harwich wait too long on the county funds, because although we do have time for a full commitment and expenditure of those funds, we may not have all that much time to make decisions, because, you know, at some point that pool of $40 million is going to be distributed.
I think the sooner the better. I think you're right.
Yes, in that term, the quicker, I mean, I forget, I think the date is end of February, that we want direct requests. They want direct requests through their portal. Isn't that right, Joe? We're working on changing that. But, you know, the quicker you can get your proposals together for the county funds, the better. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. All set? Okay, moving on to the committee meetings, and we will start with CPC, Community Preservation Committee. Thank you. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, Dave Nixon, Chair of CPC. Can I approach you for some handouts?
Yes.
for yourself, Joe, Mary, and Carol Azari has a copy of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
And this is specifically for Larry and Mary's reading. I pay attention to the meetings. I'd like to make a brief public comment. The CPC meeting Thursday night has been canceled, and we'll have that meeting next Thursday night. Okay, in front of you, all the information that's there is on the CPC website. It's complete. I want to thank Kathy Green for putting this document together for me. And as I stated to other members of the CPC board, I request that every one of the board members is a participant. And it's a participant, she knows. It gives people a chance to really get into what the CPC is. So, there's a couple, I'm going to make this quick. There's a couple of numbers I'm going to give you. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. In that document you have, since 28, I'm sorry, for the 18 years of funding for the CPC, since '04, the CPC has distributed $29,460,398.50. The list of all the applications, of all the articles, are in this document. Again, all this information is online at the CPC website. The total amounts rescinded or returned is $1,477,779.77.38. That's over an 18-year period. That doesn't include the applications this year. So, that's brief. Any questions from the board?
Larry?
I think you've buried us with enough numbers. I shall study them.
That's the one thing you, I got it.
Julie?
No, I think the CPC does a terrific job, and I've been to some of your meetings in the past, and I do think you guys have such a great handle on the projects that are important, that qualify, and you really do a good job on making sure that people give an overall view of why their project is important. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
And now you keep us to spending the money quickly. Mary?
Thank you, David. I always appreciate concise reports, but I look forward to hopping on that page on the website and reviewing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
You're all set?
I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you very much, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Youth Services. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Meredith Henderson, and I'm here as the Secretary to the Youth Services Committee. Here with me are other members from the committee, Jeffrey Craig, Joy Jordan, and Sheila House, and the members that were unable to attend tonight are Becky Craig, Holly Tavano, and our student representative, Annalise Langelier. The Harwich Youth Services is a collaborative committee working with schools in the community to inform the public about resources, educational events, and supports for Harwich youth and families. This year, Sheila House from the Harwich Youth and Family Services saw a rise in referrals and case management due to the stressors caused by social isolation and anxiety during the pandemic. There's a dire shortage of mental health counselor services on Cape Cod. This appears to be a nationwide problem, and youth on Cape Cod often have to wait 2 to 3 months to see a clinician. Sheila is able to see youth in Harwich within a week and often sooner if there is an emergency. Sheila is involved with the following boards and organizations: Barnstable County Regional Substance Use Commission, Substance Use Prevention Council, Monomoy Regional School District Crisis Response Team, Harwich Children's Fund, the Friends of the Harwich Youth, Monomoy Regional School District Equity Task Force, and Behavioral Health Innovators Incorporated, which currently is running an after-school peer support substance use program for teens called Recovery Build. And their new location is in Harwich at the Pleasant Bay Community Boating, and in Falmouth at the Gus Canty Recreation Center. Although 2 years ago when I was here reporting out to you, we had a very long list of goals that we were able to accomplish. With the pandemic, not so many, but still impactful for our youth. So the goals that we were able to accomplish during the 2021 year are to, we brought Save a Life tour to the high school, and this event took place on Friday, December 3rd, 2021, and was open to all wellness classes, peer leaders, and 8th grade students. We were able to organize the future middle school events that we were able to organize were limited, but during the pandemic, we were able to, Friday, October 22nd, we hosted the first annual middle school kickball tournament under the lights at White House Field. This event brought together Monomoy Middle School students and first responders from the towns of Harwich and Chatham. It was a spirited and fun event, and we're planning more events with these two populations to keep connections strong. We were also able to support the Harwich Children's Fund, an all-volunteer group of community members and retired teachers who provide needed assistance for Harwich families, including but not limited to clothing, food assistance, camp scholarships, and enrichment programs. This year, because of a generous funding from the Harwich Fund of Cape Cod Foundation, Cape and Islands United Way, and Cape Cod 5, the Harwich Children's Fund was able to provide winter coats, boots, and clothing to over 100 Harwich children, enrichment and summer camp placements, and scholarships for 2 students attending college in the fall of 2021. We were also able to support community activities such as the Family Fun Drive-Through event, which took place on April 10th, 2021 at Monomoy High School. Harwich Children's Fund had a table at the fun event, handing out brochures from the Children's Fund, from Conservation, and the Arboretum. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions from the board, Larry?
No, thank you very much for your report. And you and your others here, we read and we know that the referrals are absolutely necessary. The stress are putting on the kids and the social isolation, the risk. The downside of the lockdown, so to speak, has been horrendous. Mm-hmm. And I know from other activities, I'm involved some with Outer Cape Health Services, and they're seeing the same thing in that population. And I know they're looking for people as well. Maybe I know you're talking back and forth, but it's a tough position to fill at the moment. So thanks for reaching out and going forward. But that's a huge concern, and it's not going to go away anytime. My fear is that even when we open up, it'll still be this will be dragging on. So we'll give you all the support we can. But good job,
Mary.
I was struck reading your report at, I think it's 20 or so different organizations that you collaborate with. That's quite impressive, and glad that you're looking at maybe another kickball tournament. I was sorry to miss this year's.
It was very exciting.
It was epic.
Yes.
This guy right here, Jeff Craig, I've never seen anybody wrangle. They were all waiting in line, and he made sure that kids didn't get to go every 4th kid, so he's like, get in the back of the line. Great.
That's right. Organized hustle.
Julie?
No, I just want to thank you for the fantastic job you do anyway, but during this pandemic, the kids so need you, and your comment about, you know, the limited mental health services on the Cape, it's really difficult. I mean, that's to say the least. It's really kind of tragic.
Yeah.
And the support you offer the kids is fantastic, and we are so lucky to have you. I loved that you did the kickball tournament. I was the same as Mary. I was so hoping to attend. Looked like it was a great time. I saw photos. And I just want to thank you, because I think students, whether they are elementary, middle, high school, college, I think they're exhausted just like the rest of us. But, you know, we're adults and we have better skills at coping. And these kids are so used to being hooked on their technology, and yet they've seen another side in this pandemic where they don't even want to be part of technology anymore because it's not serving the same purpose.
Exactly.
So I just thank you.
The high school kids especially are the most exhausted because, you know, they look like little adults, right? But they're still kids.
Right.
And, when I was in high school, I was off with my friends every weekend. I was,
exactly,
you know, going up to Boston. I was, you know, just
right.
having a lot of fun and, you know, being able to, I could hug anybody, you know, just things we take for granted. And so I was speaking to a class today of juniors and seniors and just said, you guys need to give yourselves a lot of credit for, you know, what I really, really look up to you, I said to them, and they were sort of like, whoa. And, but it's true, because they've done an amazing job considering, so. And,
yeah, it's so
and I
true.
just return the acknowledgement back to the town for having a position like this, that, you know, that they have kids that they can send, somebody that can send kids to.
Well, you bring that to life. So, you know, again, back to you and your group. And I think you're right. I think that when kids at least feel heard, even if it's difficult, at least they're heard, and the acknowledgement that they're toughing it out is something that, you know, we probably all forget to do sometimes. So thank you.
Great job. Sheila, will you just introduce yourself to the public real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Sheila House. I'm the Town of Harwich Youth Counselor, and just celebrated 21 years. The best job in the world.
Congratulations. Great. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right. Next up is the Harwich Utility and Climate Action Committee, and hopefully after tonight it will be the Harwich Energy and Climate Action Committee.
My name is Valerie Bell, and I'm the chair of the committee. I think that utility kind of snuck in there from a way previous title that the committee had. We had changed it to the Harwich Energy Committee, and so all we have to do is just switch out those two words, and we'll be back in business. We did not do a lot during the pandemic. We are short members, as all the committees, I guess, are struggling to fill their committee committee seats. But I'll summarize. Harwich should be proud of all the work they've done so far. You've put up the solar farm. You have become a green community. So you're well on your way to doing the right thing for climate change and for reducing carbon dioxide and for conserving energy. One of the things that we would recommend might be a good thing to sort of put on the list of projects to get into is to just help Harwich switch over to electric vehicles a little more smoothly. Right now, Harwich really doesn't have charging stations. I think there's one at the Park and Ride up on 124. But as more and more tourists are coming in electric cars, charging stations are going to be part of the calculus that they're going to use when they pick where they want to go, because they want to be assured that the community has enough charging stations for them to bring their electric vehicle with them. I think we should also look into replacing some of our municipal fleet cars with electric. There are grant programs available through Massachusetts, even for municipalities, for helping to offset some of those costs for both the vehicles and the charging stations. So that would be a really concrete action thing that could get done for Harwich. It also will help in, as we move through our green communities commitments, we have to reduce our energy consumption by so much over so many years, and that would go help in that respect as well. I think when it comes to climate, I started looking at what all the different plans that are out there. So we have the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is sort of a federal act, and then Massachusetts has the Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan, goes on for pages and pages and pages. The Cape Cod Commission, we just talked about county government and what the county can do. The Cape Cod Commission, which is a county organization, they just published a climate action plan for Cape Cod. And then back in, I don't know if any of you were involved, but back in January of 2020, Harwich had a Harwich Community Resilience Building Workshop. Anybody remember that?
I do remember hearing about
Huge
that.
packet, you know, a lot of energy was put into that, where you were looking at vulnerable infrastructure and, you know, what to do about climate and, you know, what to do in a weather disaster, that type of thing. So I think there's a lot of suggestions out there. There are a lot of action plans that we can look at in order to sort of guide the town of Harwich. But it's really going to take the town of Harwich to decide what is important for us and what can we do and what are we willing to put our money and our energy into. When it comes to climate, it's not just about saving electricity or saving money on your bills, it's also about reducing carbon. And sometimes reducing carbon is not always the immediately the cost-effective way to go. So besides going for the EV cars and charging stations, continue to keep up with that green communities. I think Joe probably is in charge of making sure that that happens. The other thing that I read in all the different action plans was towns need to review their codes, building codes and bylaws to make sure that it's not a popular concept, but our coastline is so vulnerable. And our building bylaws and zoning codes, are they actually helping us mitigate some of those risks that we have at the coast? You know, so maybe some of those could be looked at, updated. And the town needs to plan for retreat. The town of Orleans already has a fairly complex retreat plan in place for Nauset Beach. They have a schedule of when they're moving the buildings, when they're moving the parking lot, when they're, you know, because they can see the future. You go to Red River Beach, you know, do we have a plan for retreat at that beach or any of our beaches? So those are some of the things that we would recommend. We'd be happy to work on them, but our biggest issue right now is trying to drum up a few more members. It's just difficult when you have 3 people to really do a lot, but you know, we're happy to help out in any way that we can. And we'd be happy to come in and talk, you know, to anybody about any of this.
Thank you. Larry, didn't you just interview for this
We interviewed
committee?
one person, it's the only one we have right now.
Okay. So we need people, which
Yeah,
is pretty widespread.
Yeah, you recommended we have, I think, 9 people on our committee, but it's like, it's been 3 for about 4 years now.
Mary?
No, just thank you, Valerie. I can't imagine the largest task, climate change, when you've got 3 players, so we need to beef up your committee. Thank you for your report and for your work.
Larry?
Yeah, thank you for your work. We are always open to interview more. My personal hope is that we get enough candidates so we have a range of diverse opinions, because it's you know, there's no doubt that we need to do something about carbon dioxide but in some ways, that may not be our most immediate concern is resilience, because that's more short term. And with that we handle it in an economically positive way. And so sometimes you can, you just read the paper, that people are so focused, they'll do one thing and maybe destroy something else. And so I want to be sure we have a diverse opinion on the committee. So we're hoping to get a lot of people volunteer for the committee, so we can, I think if the committee's stronger, the broader the reach is.
I agree.
Julie?
So first of all, thank you for your hard work, and I know you've been involved for quite some time, and you're knowledgeable. And I think your point about changing the committee, correcting that glitch is one of the first things we need to do, and rename it, and also to get you more members, because obviously one more isn't going to help right now. So, I think whatever we can do, I wonder if we could do something different, like a reverse call to the community, the residents, to see if people are interested. I don't know, some way to reach out, because people aren't going to the website.
Yeah.
So if there's a way.
In March, the committee is going to put together some sort of a presentation, we haven't decided the exact format, but doing something with Channel 18, maybe having an information table at the community center. So I'm going to Florida for a month, so I'm not going to be here for a little while. But we do have plans for March to get some of those things. So we'll also be definitely looking.
Yeah, and Florida's climate action.
Right.
But I think that you're right. I think that once you get the members that you need so that you can have a collective discussion, I think it's important that we get your feedback on what you've assessed, and then the board assesses that what are the most pertinent items that really need issues to be addressed right away. We all know we've had some strange storms in the last few years, and we need to prepare for those better. And obviously, the FEMA flood issues are going to get worse. So we've really got to be able to look at those and proactively. I know that we do have bylaws, zoning bylaws that talk about fill in the flood, zone and such. But, maybe we should be looking harder at how to better determine how we protect the most, difficult areas to protect our shoreline. So I appreciate your work, and we will work hard on getting more members. I'm just trying to think out loud on how we maybe reach out in a different way than we have in the past. And I don't know if that's a reverse phone thing, text, just to see if we can drum up some support, or some people who may not even be thinking about it. Maybe they don't realize. So.
Right. And I think sometimes if you have a specific project that you're working on, it attracts people, because you're, sort of a nebulous energy committee, may not be, but if we were, I don't know, putting together a climate workshop or something like that, people might be willing to jump in and
be part of that.
So,
Well, and I would ask the interview committee to, if we've only got the one person that you've interviewed so far, that at least we get them assigned, because currently they only have 3 people, so.
Yeah, and Valerie, you work through your liaison, any requests that you have.
Yes, Julie's been great.
Great.
She's.
And then you mentioned state and federal grants for charging stations. Do you need help with grant writing? Is that something that the town?
Most of these grants need to be generated by the town.
Okay.
They're municipal grants, and so they would need to come from the town. But the state website, has the application form,
If you could get that information to
Sure.
your liaison,
Yep.
so she can get it
Absolutely.
to administration, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
So thank you, and
Thank you,
thank your
Okay,
committee
thank you.
members. The board's okay with changing utility to energy?
Sure.
Mary, you're all right with that? Okay. Joe, you made a note of that?
I did, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, discussion and possible vote on the request by Traffic Safety Committee to have a charge updated. There's 2 things. One is they want to meet quarterly instead of monthly, and we want to put a finite number on the members. It says 5 or 7.
Yeah.
So the request, the way I understand it, is to keep it 5 and to approve them meeting quarterly. Is that consensus of the board? We okay with that, Mary?
Yes.
Larry?
I am.
Julie?
Yes.
I am as well. I saw Ms. Sabula in the back. I don't know if you have anything to add, but those were the requests from past meeting and report that I remember.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and you heard it, it's changed. And Joe, we can have staff update that charge?
Certainly will do, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Julie D, I would take a motion on.
D, discussion and possible vote to approve a Class 2 and Class 4 auto license renewal for Richie's Garage, 191 Queen Anne Road.
Second.
So you're moving to approve?
And I'm
Okay.
seconding it.
That's all right. And Larry, you seconded that?
I did.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
Mary?
Aye.
Larry?
None.
Okay. Are you, so
I'm an aye.
let's just go to a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Mary said aye, and I'm an aye, 4-0. And I would take a motion on E.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. No, that's understood to have been roll call, correct?
That was, oh yeah, we have remote participation, so roll call, and everybody was an aye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So E, move, discussion and possible vote to approve.
You can just move to approve if you
I'll
want.
just move, all right.
Yeah.
Move to approve the discussion and possible vote to approve the following 2022 common victuals license renewals. 1, Ashwood Food Service doing business as Jake Rooney's, 119 Brooks Road. 2, Cape Side Kitchen, 537 Route 28. 3, CDUT Corp. doing business as Upper Crust Pizza, 1421 Orleans, Harwich Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Any discussion first?
None.
You guys are all set. Mary?
Aye.
Okay. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you. All right, next up is discussion and possible vote to approve the following 2022 entertainment license renewals. The first up is Beachlight LLC, DBA Seal Pub, 703 Main Street. The request on the application, I'm not going to read it in its entirety because at the beginning of the meeting, one or two of the owners expressed their interest in only having what they had last year.
That's
And we
correct.
also received a letter from their attorney today stating the same.
Right. We have
they'd
no.
be looking approval for last year's license.
Right. Sorry,
So
we
if-
correct.
if-
We'll revise that so that it's reflected exactly as it was last year. I think Mike
Danielle
was
will
just trying
correct
to
the.
check the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you had last year was 6 a.m. to 12
Yep.
a.m. outside, inside, sorry.
Inside, yeah.
6 a.m. to 12 a.m. inside, recorded music, acoustic live music, and karaoke.
That's it.
And that's
Yep.
all you want.
That's all we want. And then we have the other one for outside, but that's a different
That's
discussion.
different, yeah.
Okay.
So, any discussion, and I'll start with Mary. The request, Mary, is as I read it, and it's the same as last year.
No, then I have no questions.
Okay. Larry?
I have no questions with that.
Okay. Julie?
I have no questions, but it is, I'm just reconfirming, it is 6 a.m. or is it 6?
6 a.m. is when they open and
Oh,
they're.
It is technically. We
Oh,
don't
right,
have
'cause-
any really ever.
I was just checking.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
You don't have to be there, Julie.
Yeah, I won't be there.
Sometimes he's,
Right.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to call on this gentleman behind you for a second.
Hi, I'm Peter Antonellis on Parallel Street behind the seal, somewhat. Just for point of clarification, there's no amplification indoors?
This says recorded music, which would definitely be amplification, but then it says live acoustic music, and that is not amplified.
Well, I'd like to at least register my objection to any amplification. It's my understanding that the amplification can be heard out of doors if windows and doors are open. I don't know what the current situation is during this month of January, and it seems to me that in the past there has been an extension of outdoor dining under the COVID rules in the state of Massachusetts, and I'm anticipating that there'll be noise again outside if there is amplification, if those doors and windows are open, and they can be heard within 100 feet audibly by abutters. So that's my concern. I came prepared to talk about the new proposal for something else, but since I wasn't sure as to whether this one included amplification, Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Broadcasting of recorded music would be amplification.
Thank you, sir. You want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify that, so appreciate the comment on that. We do have amplified music inside. It's really just music while people are dining and so forth, and as toward the end of the night, it comes up a little bit. But to your point, during the pandemic, the Board of Health had advised that we open windows and doors so that we could get the air flowing in and out, particularly in the summertime. Because it can get, stuffy. After we had received an initial complaint about noise, we then rectified that by closing doors and windows. So we have a policy of keeping everything closed at night. I have many sample recordings of myself standing outside with music on indoors with the doors closed, and you cannot hear. The nice thing about having an old building is that it's solidly built, so you do have a really good soundproof within the building itself. Outdoor, we are not seeking any, and that's a different discussion, but we're not seeking any amplified music other than just our resident musician who's a guitar acoustic singer-songwriter. That's it. So,
thank you. All right, any other questions from the board? With no questions, I would take a motion, and the motion should be to approve the license with last year's conditions, which is 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. inside recorded acoustic, and if you want, basically that. Move to approve.
I move that we approve. The glasses keep fogging up.
You can put your mask down to talk.
I am because I'm talking.
Yeah.
I move to approve the Beachlight LLC doing business as a seal pub license, entertainment license from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. with recorded music, acoustic live music, and karaoke. Is that good?
Yes.
6 a.m., you didn't give an end time, Julie.
12 a.m.
12 a.m.
12 a.m., thank you.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. And we will go to a roll call vote. Let me just make sure I want to make sure we're covered. The only other thing, Julie, did you do this piece, the dancing by patrons and entertainers? I just don't want to hold anything up on them.
Yeah, all right, let me ask you this then. Are we also saying dancing by patrons, theatrical exhibit?
No.
No,
No.
we're not. Play or moving
No.
picture show?
No, just dancing by patrons.
Okay, and dancing by patrons. And we've got everything else in that
Yes.
motion?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so that's included.
Okay. And I'm going to do roll call vote. Mary?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. 4-0, Joe. And let's just make sure we get everything. That's all set.
Did we say Sunday?
No, I think we should vote Sunday separately because that's a separate
okay.
application. And where is Sunday hours?
Well, it's at the very bottom, G2. You want to move to G2
It says,
and do that while we're on the subject?
well, no, I'm just saying in that first, the initial one of the last year's, it's also Sunday recorded or live.
Okay,
music,
yeah.
Dancing by patrons and entertainers.
This Sunday is also, it's a later start time if I was reading that correctly, so it's.
1 o'clock,
Yeah,
right?
which is what we.
So do a motion to do Sunday from 1 to, no, just do a separate motion.
Okay.
Sunday, 1
What is it,
PM.
1 to?
1 p.m. to 12.
12?
I think it's the same.
Okay, so separately, the new motion, I move that we approve the entertainment license, again, Beachlight LLC, doing business as Seal Pub, 703 Main Street I can't wear these. For Sunday, for recorded or live music and dancing by patrons and entertainers from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Hang on, I'm pulling up the matrix that we had from last year. I apologize, it's not on the agenda, so we're struggling a little bit here.
It's confusing.
Which, let's see.
This is why I went back and forth with Danielle.
10 p.m.
Oh, to 10 p.m.
1
So
p.m. to
1
10
p.m.
p.m.
to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Indoors.
Indoors, yeah. We're
Indoors.
not talking about outside yet.
Okay, let me redo it.
Hang on one second, just make sure he's, okay.
All right?
Yep.
Okay, so I move to approve the Sunday entertainment license for Beach Light LLC, doing business as Seal Pub, 703 Main Street, with recorded or live music, dancing by patrons and entertainers from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. indoors.
Second.
Go ahead, we're into discussion, go ahead.
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Okay.
Keep in mind, we're open at 6 a.m. 7 days a week. I turn on my Sonos at 6 a.m. So when Danielle and I went over this, the correct time should be 6 a.m. Monday through Sunday, but you all request 2 different applications. So this should not be one for inside. It should be 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.
So the original motion,
Yes.
the original motion that I made.
Yes,
is correct.
but just on Sunday. Now we're just talking about just on Sunday.
So
Does
you-
that make sense?
So you want it from 6 a.m.
Till 12 a.m.
12 a.m. inside on Sundays?
Inside on Sunday.
Okay,
It
so,
really isn't,
It's the same all
it's
week
really
long.
the
It's the
same.
same all week.
he's just thinking he's being
You're covering yourself
super, yes.
Okay.
for the radio.
All right.
Yeah.
It's
It's the outside,
elevator background music.
yeah, it's the outside that the law starts, I think,
Okay, Larry,
at
will
1
you
o'clock.
withdraw your second?
I will.
And Julie, withdraw your
I
motion?
withdraw my motion, and
Okay.
so we can redo this motion by just saying everything we said in the first one and saying including Sunday.
That's correct.
Right.
And that was, do we want to,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Mary.
I just have a question. What did they have on Sunday last year?
It's not in the packet.
You
Oh.
didn't ask us to do that last year. I think it was just, yeah.
What didn't we, stand right back up, will you? Just,
We only did one. We only did one for the entire week. And then for whatever reason, you decided to break it down into 4 separate
Like indoor, outdoors.
indoor, outdoor,
Weekend. I think
Sunday versus Monday through Saturday.
because Sunday's a different license.
I
for
think
the
Sunday,
state.
that's right.
Yeah.
Sunday's regulated differently by the state.
Danielle called me over several times saying, listen, we want to just make sure that we're
Yeah,
doing it correct this time.
Yeah.
state license is different for Sundays. So go ahead and read a
So,
Sunday
so
motion.
regardless, though, we can make the one motion.
6 to 12 was the motion.
Right, 6 to 12, including
Sunday,
Sundays.
yeah.
And do you want me to repeat the recorded?
So why don't we do a clean motion for Danielle and staff? So Larry, the original motion,
Well, we have the original motion in hand. Why don't we just do a separate motion for Sunday with the same criteria as we did for the other weeks? That way she's
that's the cleanest way to
covered.
do it.
Right.
Go ahead.
So Sunday.
Yep.
Recorded or live music, dancing paid by patrons and entertainers, again, from 6 a.m. to 12
Well,
12.
yeah,
on Sundays.
on Sunday. And I second.
Dancing by patrons inside on Sundays, no?
No?
No.
No dancing on Sunday?
Well, I wanted to cover myself in every,
making sure we didn't actually have
Okay.
that in there. 'cause we don't have a dance floor.
no,
All
Chair?
getting
not
rid of
before
that.
church.
Okay, no, nothing before church, okay. So we will just say, again, same motion.
Yep.
I'm withdrawing my,
Excluding,
take this back.
yeah, okay.
So now, again, it is for Sunday, I'm moving to approve Beach Light LLC, doing business as a Seal Pub, 703 Main Street, entertainment license for Sunday, recorded or live music from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.
And it's acoustic, live, and
Acoustic.
live music.
Acoustic
Yep,
and live.
acoustic.
Okay.
Got it. And I second that.
You seconded that. Discussion, Mary?
I'm going to be a no because I don't know what they had last year on Sunday.
Larry?
No further discussion.
Julie?
I have nothing more.
And I have nothing, and indoor entertainment, I'm okay with, so. Mary, we're gonna do a roll call vote, so Mary?
I'm a nay.
Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that one passes. 3-1, Joe? All right, so the next one seems a little simpler.
So I
hope so.
move-
Let's go ahead with 2.
So you want me to go ahead with the motion?
Yep.
I move to approve Ashwood Food Service doing business as Jake Rooney's 119 Brooks Road, weekday 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. and Sunday 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. inside.
Recorded.
The entertainment type is recorded or live music,
That's it.
and that's it.
And I second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Mary, discussion?
Oh, no questions.
Larry?
None.
Julie?
No questions, aye.
Okay, roll call vote. Julie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next. Go ahead and read G.
Discussion and possible vote to approve the following new 2022 entertainment licenses. 1, Blue Stripe LLC, doing business as Cape Sea Grill, 31 C Street, Sunday, 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. inside.
Yep.
Want to stop there?
Yep, do the entertainment type.
And the entertainment type is recorded or live music with amplification.
You're moving to approve that.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Mary, any discussion on this one?
No.
Larry?
No.
Julie?
No.
Okay, roll call vote. Julie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye, 4-0. The next one is Beachlight LLC DBA Seal Pub, 703 Main Street, weekday 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. outside, and Sunday 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Outside. I would ask the applicant to stand up and give us an idea on this. This is a new outdoor entertainment license. We have not approved outdoor entertainment license there in the past.
Sure.
I think we can all agree, despite what the attorney wrote to us today, that there's been noise issues with the neighbors there, and that is with music inside with the windows open. How do we think that we're going to have music outside? And you're asking us to approve a license for 10 hours a day
Right.
with
So
music outside.
We can certainly amend that piece of it. I think it was also probably filled out with the intent to just copy our hours for the most part. But we invited John Griffin, who's our guitarist and singer-songwriter, to come with us. With it, without having him actually play for you or doing anything like that, which we would love to do, because I think it would be actually fantastic if we could. Our intent is to really only be out there and from say 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock for just the dinner hour portion of the evening. His songs are mellow, and you're not talking about hard rock or anything loud. His voice is about what mine is right now while we're speaking to each other at the same kind of level. And what really the intent for this is to work with the town, to be a good neighbor, to be a good business in the town, with the intent to bring in a nicer audience, a more subdued audience that's going to sit there and drink wine and listen to a guitar player, singing, really nice, mellow music. That is really the intent of it. So the intent is not a raucous party. It is actually the opposite of that. Despite what anybody may think, we actually prefer that type of business as well. So that is our intent, is to try to include some of this nice, soft, mellow dinner music, so that people can sit out and enjoy their food and wine on the street or on the deck and listen to that, with the full pledge from us to be done and over with no noise outside, audible by 10 p.m. So that is our intent. Certainly we hear the issues from last year where we were inundated with kids coming into town, us also being a brand new business, and post-pandemic era at Memorial Day weekend and that week, flooding in and going crazy. So we've obviously made the adjustments to that, and we've talked about that previously. So, but with this, the intent is really to change the dynamic and the demographic of some of the visitors that we get, and including music like John's is really the right way to go about doing that. That's our feeling on it.
I'll tell you my concerns, and we'll listen to the rest of the selectmen, and then you can decide whether or not you want to try and go forward with this tonight. First of all, I'm inclined to have especially if the hours stay on here and the board supports it, I think I would be more comfortable with a public hearing on this so that the neighbors can speak. I did receive some calls today. I did receive an email today, and I know there's one gentleman that's here to speak against this tonight, or I'm assuming against it based on his last comment. A realistic time schedule would I think go a lot further than just asking
just a
for
general
10 hours. Where there's a business in West Harwich that we approved a few years ago with some very specific times that they could do music, and that was based on, there was a fairly large group from West Harwich that were against that. I'm very pro-entertainment and very pro-music, despite what some in Harwichport may think. But the chief is nodding, yes he is, and we may argue about that later.
Yes.
But again, I think, and I want you to hear from the rest of the board before we even consider a motion on this. The hours are, it's way too big an ask.
So I'm going to speak for them right now, but I think the best way to go about it is probably to resubmit, or we can withdraw that and resubmit it with hours that are appropriate.
And I think I would,
And
if I were you, just for because you have an audience tonight with the board members, at least listen to what they have to say so that you can go back and have a conversation about that.
Of course, absolutely.
Before you resubmit.
Happy to hear it, and that's,
The other problem that I see is the deck. It's small, very small. So if you put an entertainer on that deck, what are you gonna do? Where are all these people gonna sit and drink their wine and eat on that deck? And I'm not criticizing, but I do believe you were given an expansion on that deck because of COVID, and I'm not sure that the governor's gonna reissue that order this year. He may, especially at the surge that we're at now, but I do believe that the deck was expanded at least a little bit. Bob's shaking his head no, so but we'll let him speak on that.
Yeah, I'll let him speak.
But just, you have to speak at the mic, yeah. But where do you anticipate putting the people that are gonna come listen to this man play?
Sure, the answer is on the deck, because that's the only place that they can be. They can't be out further than that in any direction. I think the seating that we have, is also somewhat limited. In the summertime, what we have is we have chairs that are indoors that we bring outdoors and put them in there. And as the tide goes in, we bring them back inside once if somebody's out there performing, we'd like to bring them, people will start to move back indoors once the music is over. So that's the way I would envision it. I think that, that's probably the most realistic way to do it. In the wintertime, obviously, this is also very specific to summer. This is not, so again, we would revise the hours. If there's months or something like that you'd want to include, like June, July, and August, that would be fine, because that's really when
Right, so we'll get into comments from the board. Bob, if you could just answer that question on the deck, that'd be great.
Our seating is sort of a flex seating, so in the season, we get to move our chairs outside to the deck. So that is our licensed premises. That has nothing to do with the governor or the shared street stuff. We were allowed to move into the driveway that we share with the church parking lot, and we were supposed to get some outdoor seating in the front. That didn't happen. We still have the right to do some tables in the front windows. We've never done that. That's the governor's stuff. We have the right to have those tables. And I see this as a mistake on this application, because we wanted to do 6 to 10 for acoustic guitar only. It's no amplification outside. So that's what we have, regular people that come out. One of the complaints we had, or we were cited for, was John's playing for a wedding an engagement that happened on our deck, and they wanted to hear Rich Girl, and he played it and they sang. A neighbor complained over hearing noise by kids, but the officer heard noise by guitar. So there is no measurement by your noise ordinance. Somebody hears one thing, can complain, another hears something else. And, we're not violators. We're a restaurant. We hire kids. We try to do good in Harwich Center. I think we've added to the town. And we just want the town to realize that we want to support musicians. We have 2 guitar players that are very good. They, you know, Perks was hit, they couldn't even have it. So the town has to really balance where they want to go with this.
Yeah, I don't want to get into what the town's
I
gonna
understand what you guys don't want to get into, but at the same time,
Bob.
we're just asking for no amplification.
Bob.
We want just guitar.
I think we just decided we were gonna resubmit an application. So
Well,
when I get it in
I think you
writing,
have one
that's
before.
what we're gonna go for. In the meantime, we're not gonna rehash what happened last year. We're not gonna look backwards. We're gonna look forward, and we're gonna vote on something that we have on paper with realistic hours.
Okay, I hope the board
My question to
does go
you
forward.
was, did you expand the footprint of your deck?
No.
That's all I wanted to know.
Nope.
Thank you. Julie?
So, first of all, I do, I think that it's good to hear that you're talking no amplification, because we've already, made that clear in Harwich Port. So we certainly don't want to create 2 different standards. I also am glad to hear of the less hours. I agree with Michael, it's too many hours. If you're looking at 6 to 10 during the week, I think that, depending on, and I do think a public hearing is probably a good idea. So I think overall, if we're talking weekdays during the summer months, I think 6 to 10 works. I think Sunday maybe 6 to 9. And I mean, that's my general feedback. But I do think a public hearing is important so that the neighbors feel heard.
Larry?
You've moved in a direction that I'm comfortable with, is 6 to 10 p.m., with no amplification. I think it's a small deck. I was wondering why you need amplification on such a small deck.
You don't, John's actually a pretty strong, strong voice and can carry.
And so I think if you resubmit the application with that, I'm comfortable. And we all agree with the public hearing. We always want public input. But
Mary?
I appreciate hearing that your goal is to change things and become more mellow. So I certainly like that you're doing that. I'm not inclined to want outside entertainment at that location. I think it was a very challenging summer last year with 4 issues that came before the licensing board, and whether they were legally accountable to the ABCC, I don't have any doubt that those things happened, and I am not interested in outside entertainment in that location.
Thank you, Mary. The only final comment I would have is I think 10 p.m. is too late. And I personally, I think if you're serving dinner and this is for wine and dinner on the deck, and the other thing I would encourage you to do is maybe look at the restaurant West Harwich, because it's not every day. The neighbors get a reprieve, and I'm sure he's not going to play for you every single day for the entire summer. So if you come up with a schedule that makes sense, it might be more palatable for the neighbors.
John, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think,
You got to stand at the mic, sorry. People at home need to be able to see you.
hi, everyone. I'm John Griffin. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me. I live in Boston, so I definitely wouldn't be doing it every day, but I like to come down here when I can. But I think 6 to 9 is totally reasonable, for the dinner crowd. And also agree that 10 o'clock is too late to have people out there. So I think having more specifics on the application and 6 to 9, like Josh said, if it's certain months or certain days of the week, that sounds good to me.
Take a look at it and reapply, please. And then we'll get a hold of you. Restate your name. 1 second, Joe, and 1 second, Mary.
Peter Antonellis on Parallel Street.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear the applicant saying they want to work with the town, and having a public hearing is a great idea. The limited hours is a great idea. No amplification, all those are correct. As one selectman, as Ms. Anderson has said, outside is going to be an issue. It's great that there's going to be a public hearing.
We got feedback from somebody. Got it? Okay.
Great for a public hearing. Outside will be an issue at that location, from what I've heard from my neighbors. But my experience in working with the planning department, or the planning board, on getting the new deli on Main Street approved, the answer to that was working with people outside of a public hearing. If the applicant can reach out to the abutters, through correspondence, whether it's verbal or written, and explain to them where they're going with this, it's going to help the town to come to a public hearing with a lot of agreement already in place. But outside is going to be an issue.
Okay.
But thank you very much for your time, and
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Good evening. I'm Tom Meehan. I'm a neighbor on Parallel Street. And I really appreciate the direction that you guys are going with this now. It sounds like it should work very well. Last year, I think the biggest problem was the younger crowd. In younger crowd, they were drinking too much, and there were some fights in the parking lot, as we all know. And the fact that this seems to be moving on, this looks like it's going to be a really nice venue. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Joe Powers?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just ask that if it's the intent of the applicants this evening to withdraw this application, that they state that for the record. That way the town can show that the matter was withdrawn by the applicants and came back at a future meeting.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, we'd like to confirm we'll withdraw the application and resubmit it at a later date.
Thank you, Josh. Mary, anything further?
Oh, I'm all set, Michael.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, where are we now, Julie?
We are at,
I need my glasses.
no, discussion
H?
and possible, yeah, H. All right.
Okay, H. So this is draft response to Massachusetts Housing Finance Agency in regards to the site approval application submitted by Kima Apartments LLC for Chloe's Path, located off Sisson Road. You all received that memo, and we've all received that application, and they are looking for our input. My real quick answer is for Joe to work on, or have staff work on, a draft response based on our meetings and all of the board's comments and concerns. If that doesn't work for you, Joe, tell me now.
Sorry, there's pressure to get to that mute button. It's not that it doesn't work, but I think there are three elements that are at play with the letter we received. The first is that there is a site visit wherein you, the board, have been invited on January 18th at 11 a.m. Staff has already, I have it on my calendar, and several other folks have it on their calendar, and will be there. But that was the primary reason for getting into the board this evening. Knowing that you don't meet again until the evening of the 18th, wanted to put out there that there is that walkthrough on January 18th at 11 a.m. Separate from that, there will be a future discussion at the board level, if the board approves, to finalize the commentary, which is due on February 9th, as you can see in the letter. And then last but not least, and it's not an item that needs to be addressed tonight, but it also goes back to an item that board member Anderson had made me aware of. You can see that the Mass Housing Partnership also offers a program where they give grants up to $15,000 for municipalities to hire third-party consultants to help the town. My initial action on that is to continue to work with the council, who will be advising the zoning board on this application, but also their input on that best practice. So really, it's the three different things that are in play tonight. The timeliness of it would be regarding the January 18th site visit.
Thank you. Who intends to attend the 18th? Julie?
I put it on my calendar.
Did you?
I'm hoping
I haven't, but I'll probably try to make it.
Yeah, I'm going to try and make it. I know Mary said she was going, and Don said he was going.
So we can post it?
We don't have to post it because we're not going to deliberate on site. So new guidelines say we don't have to post when we're all going to be together if we don't deliberate. Joe, and then moving forward and thinking that I'd rather get it to them sooner rather than later, there was a lot of positive comments on this, but there was also a lot of negatives, including the restriction on the site on whether or not it's buildable, because if you read through their application, they say it is buildable. It's my understanding that it is not until they change that, and they just should outline in their application that they have a deed restriction to lift before they can build, or a covenant. And then that the board's number one concern really was the amount of units. but the more we can get into a letter quicker, I think it will serve us better, because there was a fair amount of public input on that. And they were looking for any and all materials, which I know we've already started to assemble.
And I think
Julie, go ahead.
I think that this application also references, I think, different parking numbers than we received.
Yeah.
So.
So the board can send you any thoughts that they have, Joe, but if we could try and do our best to put something together based on the lengthy hearings that we had, I would appreciate a draft sooner than later.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Hearing that the board members intend to go to the site visit is very helpful for that effort. We're going to talk about it at tomorrow morning's department head meeting to see what other departments will be represented on the 18th. I'll be reaching out to the individual who wrote that letter to advise them of that, and also start a conversation about the narrative response that we'll have, and that will be presented to the board well before the due date.
Thank you.
So we'll have that all together. Thank you. And then lastly, if the board thinks there is any value in pursuing the potential use of a third-party consultant.
I think we absolutely should. I'll speak for myself, but if we can get a grant for $15,000, I know when the Board of Appeals was before us for their annual report, that was a topic that they wanted to know more about. So having a housing expert follow them through this process, I think would be very helpful for the town of Harwich. So is that the consensus of the board, Julie?
Yes.
Larry? Yeah. Mary?
Yes.
There you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, I think this is the important one. We held off. Discussion and possible vote on the evaluation and future goals for Joseph F. Powers, Town Administrator. So, Joe, congratulations on your, I think, very successful performance evaluation, which were all satisfactory to highly satisfactory, with a lot of great comments from the board. So I would say we fulfilled our obligations in reviewing you, and having the passing grade that gets you your contractual increase. And with that, I'll turn it over. Why don't we do comments from the board first? Mary?
Yeah, the words on the evaluation speak for themselves. I think you're doing a great job. And the only reason for the satisfactory versus the highly satisfactory is just your time on position and my time in position. I want to see more. So I'm quite thrilled to have you be our town administrator.
Larry?
Yeah, job well done. You know, some of my, even though I've been more than Mary, I think some of the issues that I raised were ones that are under development. And that is, you know, we're still working out procurement activities. We've made a big improvement on that. But until that's complete, I think that's good. The great job on the financial side. I think it's all positive. I think my only, not negative, but comment would be that I think, as Mark has raised earlier, communication could be increased a bit. But I know, Joe, you're putting together your staff at the moment, and you've gone through unusual times. So look forward to another year.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I would reiterate Mary's comments in the sense that I've had limited time with you, Joe, but from my experience so far, I think that you do a good job in terms of all the expertise you can offer the board and on the day-to-day, and I appreciate that. I would say that communication, in terms of feedback, would probably be, just in terms of the timely responses, but I know that there's been quite a lot to deal with, so whatever way we can move to improve that, that'd be helpful, but otherwise, I think you've done a great job, and congrats.
So I'll end with echoing some of their comments. Joe, clearly I was your biggest critic for quite a while. I think we've come a long way, and maybe it's because you stuck with me every Tuesday. But you certainly have proven yourself in a lot of areas to me that I didn't think was going to happen, and you've done gotten a lot more work done than I thought was going to happen. There's two areas: communication, which you and I have had a separate conversation on, and two other board members just mentioned it. And communication to the board has been excellent. Communication, I think, to some employees needs to be improved, and then to residents. You know, that's the most complaints I get is non-response or not a timely response. And to Julie's point, especially reading the Board of Health tonight, and you as the town administrator, I can appreciate how much you've had to do and how much we've had to adapt and how many people you have to support. The only other piece, Joe, is the leadership part of the performance evaluation. And it's funny because of the charter, the only people I can rank you on is the leadership of the projects that are getting done, and assuming that department heads are being led to get those done, but that's an assumption. And your staff, our staff, Danielle, Ellen, Megan, Carol, and some of the direct hires, obviously, we talked to, but it's hard to grade you on leadership with no mechanism to be able to speak to the department heads. So there's no feedback mechanism from department heads directly to the board, and I think that that's a flaw in the performance evaluation and, quite frankly, in the charter. So I know selectmen should not be involved and cannot be involved in day-to-day, but I do think we should try and come up with a mechanism where we get, whether it's you know, an interview with different department heads to get their comments so that we can better grade on leadership. And with that, Mary has a comment on that, and then I'll go to you, Joe. Mary?
That was also one area, I didn't mention it previously, of concern. I do feel what we see as a board is quite good, but there is certainly some belief in town that communication among the staff is not as good. And one of the things I wondered is, from my telephone company days, we used to do what they called 360 appraisals, where you would get feedback from your direct reports as well as your peers. Not a whole appraisal, but some feedback on certain, probably what we do is communication, and use that as a blueprint for improvement. So I don't know who to ask that question, Michael or Joe. Do we have the ability as a town to do that type of thing?
Okay, I'll turn this over to Joe. I don't know the answer to that because the charter is very clear on selectmen's involvement with department heads. So I think it's a great idea, and I believe the water commissioners use it for the water superintendent, and they get feedback from staff. But with that, Joe Powers. And congratulations again.
Thank you. And first thing I'm trying to say is thank you. I really wish I could be there in person tonight because I would rather express my gratitude to all of you, first and foremost, for your support over what will be my first full official year. But also your support in taking the evaluation process seriously. And I read them all and I appreciate them all. And those are the compliments as well as the areas that I can improve upon. And I think if I could grade you folks, I'd say you nailed it. I really appreciate your willingness to work with that form. I'm embarrassed that I didn't get all of the glitches fixed so that it looked like they were double scores, but I'll work on that. But to the last part, first, I would say that whatever the charter says, it says that you folks employ me and I work for you. So I'm confident that we can come up with a better refined evaluation form and an evaluation process that captures what you're looking for. And I also know that I have areas of improvement, and I take your comments to heart, and I appreciate it. But I'm just thrilled to have the process have gone as smoothly as it has done, folks to be so forthright and open as you have. And last but not least, I have to explain some of my verbal cues or nonverbal cues that I was giving. Right when you folks started to do my evaluation, one of my daughters decided she was going to be super excited, so I was trying to tell her to close the door. So now that that's done and I can focus, boy, I don't like meeting remotely, but I appreciate the process you did. I certainly appreciate the feedback, You've given me a lot of good information to move forward, and I really appreciate that. And last but not least, I think we've established an evaluation process that can be cascaded down throughout our organization. So very pleased indeed, and just want to thank you again for the opportunity to serve in this job in our great town. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to keep you up for the next topic, which is old business updates on 5 Bells Neck, 203 Bank, and 0 Seth Whitefield, also Hawks Nest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to balance back over now to that part of my packet. And I would be remiss if I couldn't tie the two topics together, meaning what you talked about just a moment ago and the topic this evening that you just asked me to speak on, and that's my staff. And when I say my staff, I mean the administration team first and foremost. I have been incredibly well served by Megan Eldridge, Danielle Delaney, and Alan Powell. And I know I'm pleased to be able to work not only with that crew and that team over the last year, but despite the headwinds that we have. I also want to take a quick moment to thank my peers and the department heads as well, because we truly are a team, and we all are in this together. That's my segue for this topic, Mr. Chairman, because you'll see that during my planned absence, which was a vacation, and then the unplanned absence, which is dealing with COVID, you can see that the updates have been provided to you by our assistant town administrator. So we have submitted last week the request for quotes for real estate and brokerage services. As you know, that's the necessary next step to do something about the property at 5 Bells Neck Road. My last conversation with our assistant administrator, I know that we received a deferral or a denial of the opportunity from one of the folks we sought a quote from. So that process is still ongoing. However, we hope to have final quotes in by the end of this week. And I'm hoping to report as early as next week that we have somebody under contract for that. I'm happy to take questions on that or continue if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions?
The deadline of the January 12th. How much time did we have in terms of gathering these requests? 8? Okay. Okay.
So, Joe, the answer was how long did people have to send in the request? And the member of the audience said 8 days.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mary, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. I think next on the agenda is an update on, let me see here. 203 Bank Street, thank you. And again, this goes back to seeking appraisal services. The request for quotes was submitted on Tuesday, January 4th, as was the other one. And what the town is seeking is appraisal services for 0 Town Way, what would be the property that town meeting allowed the board to take by eminent domain. We need an updated appraisal on that property. That's the first one listed. And then an appraisal of 203 Bank Street so that we adequately take into consideration the true value of the property, which we understand to be the parcel that contains the building itself, and that being the main parcel, if you will. So we were able to get a list of appraisers from some local folks. We have a robust list, and hoping that we get, again, some positive responses, hopefully by the 12th, and again, to get information back to the board as early as next week.
Any questions? Mary?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, Larry, Julie, all set? All set?
Yeah, I did appreciate that you're looking for appraisal of 203 Bank Street and then the 3 adjoining properties, both together and separately.
Yep.
These are options, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Larry. Go ahead, Joe.
And thank you. And again, for this last one, as well as the last two, the bulk of that work was done in my absence. And I thank Megan for her work. Last but not least, we have a proposal that was submitted by our former colleague and dear friend, Paul Sweetser, to provide survey services related to Judah Eldridge parcel. You may recall that council, when they revived that process, said that the tax title examination was insufficient, and therefore we should rely upon a new survey. So we're fortunate to have Paul Sweetser do that. The only issue at this point is trying to find the money to get that job done, because as you know, it was not previously funded directly. So I'm working with the finance director to see if we can use funds that are related to the CPC vote.
Thank you, Joe. That appraisal seemed awfully high to me, or the estimate seemed awfully high to me, and I'm certainly not a surveyor, but we have an open surveying position in the town, and I think we have to have a more broad conversation, maybe on the next agenda or a couple weeks, on filling that position. I think the more we look at eminent domain takings and all of these miscellaneous parcels and owners unknown, we certainly could keep somebody busy for a few years at least, just cleaning up the mess that we're currently in on our owners unknowns. So I am going to agenda that for a future conversation, but I look forward to feedback from yourself and the board on the $26,000 ask on that one property.
Mr. Chairman, if I could start, I will tell you that, you know, the survey services, that goes back to the elimination of that goes back, I believe, on the retirement of Mr. Sweetser, going back to either late 2018 or 2019, where essentially the position has gone unfilled for a number of years. Early on, the proceeds of that were meant to be used to support technology, which that didn't happen. So I'm still dealing with the conundrum of trying to get an engineer that can serve the town, but who is also not hamstrung, as our previous engineer was, by the lack of survey services. And just trying to do all that within the budget process that's ongoing, and to make sure that I'm not going too far afield with what would be considered, in this case, a new add to staff, because it has not been budgeted for several years. But I don't disagree with the need for it. It's really just trying to unwind what was done years ago and make it make sense.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions from the board?
So I don't have any questions, except, I mean, I think it's true that if we could get it in-house and get that job done, but I would say that it's a large parcel, and I deal with proposals all the time, and this is right in the ballpark.
Okay, I had no idea. Larry?
Yeah, my first read was it seemed high, and then I read the most convoluted and complicated, and then I don't know how you interpret what the lawyer wrote. And so if part of the survey, I mean, I think a survey of, you know, boundary lines, if part of that project is separating all the various land parcels and putting it together in a way that it makes sense and we can move forward, yeah, maybe the price is right. It'd be nice if we had a competitive bid so we knew, but.
Mary?
I'm going to rely on Julie's sense where she deals in that, because I had no idea.
Okay.
But I'm with Larry. That letter from the lawyer had me in circles.
All right. Thank you, Joe, for the update.
Thank you. I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, to answer Selectman Ballantyne's question, how do you read that? We've been reading it dollar by dollar, hour by hour, unfortunately. But that gives you a sense of how complex a situation we're dealing with. And last but not least, Mr. Sweetser is competitive insofar as he responded to the request. It's been extremely difficult, as you can imagine, trying getting those services rendered for the town. So we are fortunate to have a response that we can reply to.
And Paul probably knows that land better than most. Yeah. Okay, moving on to contracts. And Julie, get rid of the discussion and possible vote and just move to approve.
Okay. Move to approve the contract amendment in the amount of $17,600 with Venice Hangen Buston, better known as Incorporated, VHB, for the West Harwich Route 28 corridor improvements.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Roll call. Mary?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. 4-0, Joe. Town Administrator's report?
Thank you. Just as you've been made aware, the good news is there have been some positions that have been vacant, and just thrilled to announce several appointments that these are not new staff positions. They're filling vacancies caused by retirements, and it just ensures that we have our full complement of staff as needed. And let me just do one quick search so I can have those names readily available, Mr. Chairman. And again, they were shared with the board by staff earlier today. And I do apologize. So they would first of all be in the treasurer collector's office, a new benefits coordinator, executive assistant by the name of Crystal Legendre. I hope I'm saying Crystal's last name correctly. We do have a temporary admin assistant to be starting very soon in the cultural center, and that's Talitha Abramson. And for the water department, we have two new hires coming in, Michael Lewis, secondary distribution operator, and Daniel Leahy as laborer. And again, these are critical adds to staff to fill vacancies where the operations are needed, and in most cases are responding to retirements. Other than that, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you. Selectmen's report, Mary?
Just that I'll be glad to be in the building next week.
Thank you. Larry?
No comments, except we'll be happy to see you and Joel at the in here next week.
Julie?
I would just like to remind everybody the importance of filling out that survey, so going either to www.barnstablecounty.org/ARPA, fill out that survey, and just reminding everybody what Dr. O'Neill advised us all as we're in that surge. Hopefully we're going to see it reduce, but hopefully we'll be losing these soon.
Yes.
And then my only comment is we will be going back to a hybrid approach on our meetings, so more people can participate with the surge of this variant of coronavirus, COVID-19. I am going to open it up to links on, Jamie will put links on the agendas, and we will have a remote participation section starting next week. But all that want to come to this building are still welcome to come to this building. Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Mary?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We are adjourned.